Some stories come into your life quietly, and before you know it, they've taken over your thoughts, your evenings, and sometimes even your sleep. That's what the Empyrean series did for me. Hoy Sam and Mabuhay, I'm Dominic aka FiliSwissed and welcome back to my channel. Today we're diving into the Empyrean series by Rebecca Yarros, and it is a fantasy dystopian saga that honestly left me without words. And I mean that in the best way possible. This is a spoiler filled review, so if you haven't finished the books and plan to, I recommend saving this video for later. For those who have, let's get into it. And while you're here, don't forget to like this video if you enjoy book content like this, and subscribe if you want more thoughtful reviews and reflections on fantasy and dystopian series. I'd also love to hear your thoughts in the comments, especially if you've read the Empyrean or any of the other series I'll be comparing it to later in this video. I didn't go in with expectations. I came for dragons and I stayed for the world building, the emotional complexity, and the brutal self awareness of some of the characters. I picked it up after reading a short synopsis. Dragons, a military academy, a protagonist who begins as physically fragile but mentally strong, and a world on the edge of unraveling. That was enough to catch my attention. What I didn't expect was how emotionally resonant it would be. The pacing, the structure, the evolving mythology, everything came together in a way that made this series incredibly hard to put down. When it comes to fantasy and dystopian fiction, world building is non negotiable for me. It's why I read the genre. The same reason I enjoy RPG games. I want to be immersed in a fully realized world with its own internal logic, history, and consequences. And on that front, the Empyrean delivers, especially in Onyx Storm, where the quest to find Andarna's kind took us into uncharted isles and expanded the lore in compelling ways. It was smart, deliberate world building, not just backdrop, but a living part of the narrative. The political and post war structures are solidly developed, and the story doesn't shy away from uncomfortable truths, manipulation, propaganda, and generational revisionism. That quote hit particularly hard. This one's from Fourth Wing. I don't know which edition you have, but this one was published in 2024. And the quote that I especially like is one generation to change the text, one generation chooses to teach that text, the next grows, and the lie becomes history. This is page 485, chapter 35, I believe. Yes, exactly. This is before Liam dies, guys. So, again, spoilers alert. When I reference something, I will be mentioning where they came from. Violet Sorengale is the protagonist of the series. She's a scholar's daughter forced into the brutal war college meant for fighters. She begins physically fragile but armed with wit, intellect, and a sharp sense of survival. Violet is a protagonist who earns every inch of her growth. She doesn't start strong, she's not invincible, she learns, she adapts, and more importantly, she questions. I appreciated the emotional realism in her arc, how intelligence alone isn't enough to survive. Violet's journey reminded me of how there's this need to overperform just to be taken seriously, whether or not those people understand what your work is about or how it goes. Sadly, we in the real world don't have dragons. Zayden Riorson is the brooding, morally complex wing leader of the Fourth Wing, and a son of a rebel leader. His presence dominates the page from the start. He's predictably positioned as the love interest, but what struck me wasn't the romance, it was how he challenges Violet. He doesn't protect her in the traditional sense, he prepares her. Their bond felt earned, even if the speed of their emotional shift was accelerated by the dragon connection. I did find the constant references to his appearance a bit redundant, and the quick dismissal of Dane felt rushed. That said, their differences in how they show care, protection versus empowerment are at the heart of this triangle. Liam Myrie is Violet's assigned bodyguard and one of the most genuinely loyal characters in the entire series. Liam's loss hit harder than expected. He was written to be likable from the start, and that emotional investment paid off. His absence was felt, and I think it changed Violet more than she realized. Eric is one of Violet's friends from the wing and a quietly observant figure who supports her from the sidelines until we realize there's actually more to him. Eric deserves more character development. I was surprised and quite irritated that it took Violet so long to realize that he had already manifested his signet. It hit me the first time. That reveal should not have taken as long as it did. Sloane Myrie is Liam's younger sister, new to Basquiat, and carries a burden of grief and expectation. Her trajectory feels like a reflective arc of Violet's early days, which I'm intrigued to see unfold. There's a lot of potential from emotional depth in her storyline. Dane Atos is Violet's childhood friend turned squad leader, one who means well but often oversteps in the name of protection. His dynamic with Violet is difficult. He's not evil, but he represents a worldview that limits her. His betrayal stings, but even before that, his presence felt more like a barrier than a support. Brennan Sorrengail is Violet's older brother, long thought to be dead and later revealed to be alive and deeply embedded in the rebellion. Brennan's return was predictable, but welcome. I appreciated the emotional restraint in how Violet processed the reunion. It wasn't all hugs and resolutions, it was cautious and layered. General Soren Gale, Violet's mom, is the ruthless general of the Riders Quadrant. Colonel Soren Gale, Violet's dad, is deceased but is remembered as a gentle scholar. Her parents remain enigmas. We know less about them than we should, and Violet's glorification of her father raises a few red flags. There's clearly more to that story, and I hope it gets explored in future books. The pacing overall was efficient. There were a few quieter chapters, but I never felt the urge to skim. It felt cohesive, like each scene was leading somewhere necessary. That said, I didn't personally need the added POV chapters from Rhiannon or Imogen. Rhiannon's short chapter felt like a nice extra, but not essential. Imogen's had more weight. But even then, it might have worked better as part of a companion novella focused on other characters' perspectives. It's the kind of content I'd enjoy in a bonus half volume, not necessarily slotted into the main arc. If we're going to get alternate perspectives in future, I'd honestly rather see a novella from the dragon's point of view, especially when the Empyrean are having their secret meetings. There's so much happening in their world that humans don't fully understand. Dragons are clearly holding back knowledge, and seeing that unfold from their vantage point would add a fascinating layer to the series. Standout moments include Andarna's transformation and the implications for the dragons, the quest for her kind, especially in the Isles, the rebellion revelations and tactical shifts, and the major battle sequences, which were well balanced in strategy and emotion. Of the books released so far, Onyx Storm is my favorite. It offered more than just high stakes drama, it gave us meaningful exploration, new cultures, and deeper understanding of dragon lore. And yes, I read the series back to back to back. It demanded that kind of commitment. One area I had reservations, and I've mentioned this in my Shatter Me review as well, was the intensity and frequency of the romance. In the Empyrean, it wasn't just heavy. It was explicitly graphic, and for me, those scenes didn't add much. I understood that Violet and Zayden love each other. Their willingness to fight and even die for each other said enough. The physical intimacy, while tastefully written, felt unnecessary at times. Not offensive, just surplus. And personally, it didn't register as particularly spicy. It felt standard. It didn't elevate the stakes for me emotionally. The most meaningful intimate moment for me wasn't sexual at all. It was when Violet sank into a deep depression after Andarna left. And the scene where she finally gets out of bed to bathe and Zayden is there helping her, that was the moment their love was real. It was quiet, compassionate, grounded in care, not desire, and that did more to build their bond than any steamy chapter. Let's take a moment to look at how the Empyrean series compares to other well known fantasy and dystopian series. Empyrean stands out with its blend of fantasy dystopia, dragon lore, and military academy. It shares high fantasy roots with Inheritance Cycle and Red Queen, but diverges from the more tech based dystopias like Hunger Games, Divergent, and Matched. At its core, Empyrean explores power, loyalty, sacrifice, leadership, and personal growth. These themes align closely with rebellion driven narratives like Hunger Games and Red Queen, though Inheritance Cycle leans more into mentorship and destiny. Violet joins the ranks of strong female leads like Katniss, Triss, Mare, and Cassia. She's resilient, introspective, and emotionally complex. The contrast to male leads like Thomas and Eragon highlights the genre's range between internal conflict and external heroism. Romance is integral in Empyrean, much like in Matched, Divergent, and Red Queen. These stories lean heavily into romantic development, unlike Maze Runner or Inheritance Cycle, where romance takes a back seat. What sets Empyrean apart is how emotionally raw and narratively central its romantic arc is, even if, as I mentioned earlier, some moments felt too explicit for my taste. While Inheritance Cycle and Hunger Games deliver clear cut villains, Empyrean introduces more systemic and morally gray conflicts. Its antagonists are often institutional, echoed by Red Queen, Matched, and Maze Runner, where systems, not just individuals, are the true enemy. Overall, if you're drawn to dragon lore and character driven fantasy, go for Empyrean and Inheritance Cycle. If you want sharp political rebellion, go for Red Queen and Hunger Games. If identity and personal choice are your thing, then go for Divergent and Matched. If you live for high stakes action and survival, go for Maze Runner and Red Queen. If you read for emotional relationships, then go for Empyrean, Matched, Divergent, and Red Queen. And internally, each installment of the Empyrean adds something distinct. Fourth Wing lays the foundation, Iron Flame raises the stakes, and Onyx Storm opens the world. I'm excited and a little anxious to see what direction the next book takes. If you're a fan of intelligent fantasy with emotional depth, compelling political subtext, and a heroine who evolves on her own terms, the Empyrean series is absolutely worth your time. This isn't just about dragons or romance, it's about confronting the stories we've been told and choosing what kind of legacy we want to leave behind. If you've already read the series, I'd love to hear which dragon you'd want to bond with. I'm probably leaning toward Andarna with a side of Terran intensity. Thank you again to Orell Füssli for giving me the opportunity to discover new worlds like this. Thanks for watching. If you found this review helpful, give it a like, subscribe for more thoughtful book content, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss future videos. I'll see you next time.